right, we're going to be recording this meeting, and we're starting right now.
All right, then I will call the meeting of the Conservation Commission for December 7th open. We do have a quorum with one member attending remotely. So we will start with approval of the minutes from November 16th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And next, we have a new public hearing for 506 Lot 2 North Elm Street under the General Stormwater Management Permit for a residential septic system and grading for a two-family home. And do we have somebody here to present?
The engineer is currently on a remote meeting with the Brockton Concom and asked if it
To
could be tabled and a
table
little bit
to-
later.
All right. Is there anybody here for that hearing? Okay. As soon as he's free, he will remotely come into our meeting. So the next, we would have our continued public hearing for 21 Lincoln Street
They've asked for a continuance
to next meeting.
to the next meeting. They have received the, let's say, the first official written review by Allen and Major. Everything else that had been done up to them writing their first one was by email. And they were able to kind of consolidate a lot of the concerns through email. And at that point, they were able to review the plan very thoroughly. There was a question about the water tables, so they had test pits, and I think they were out there yesterday digging test pits. And as a result, they're gonna have to make some adjustments to the design of the basin and the drainage. And they're asking for a continuance to the next one where they think they'll be in better shape. Now, whether it will have a final approval from Allen and Major or not, I don't know, but we'll continue it to them, and then we can act on it accordingly.
I heard some conversation about wetland delineation there with the DEP. Is that something we can talk about or not?
So, it's really, we probably shouldn't be talking outside of the hearing about it, but I can say that the environmental review done by the state highest agency in the environmental department had concerns about the fact that there appears to be more wetlands out there than what was shown on the ANRAD that the commission approved. So they're gonna have to deal with that. And I can explain that probably in a lot more detail at the hearing when we continue it to the next meeting.
Sure. All right.
Any other questions? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to continue 21 Lincoln Street to the next hearing.
Motion to continue.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. We have next 1 Lamppost Lane continued hearing for general stormwater permit for construction of a single-family home.
Greg Bonovitz, Borderland Engineering, here on behalf of Berkeley Land Company, Alan Jonas. So this is lot 7, 1 Lamppost Lane. So
Greg, can you turn it
Oh,
for
yeah.
the audience?
We'll see it up.
And if you hold for a second, I'm gonna try to get it up on the screen. Does that kind of reflect? Okay, good. All right.
So the revision, we were asked to make at the last meeting, was to add a yard drain, which we did, to take care of a low point in the yard towards Elm Street, the hydrant area out there, the existing hydrant, which kind of always collected some standing water during some heavy rainstorm events. So we added that yard drain and piped it to the drainage system for the subdivision.
And in case the audience can't see it, this is the yard drain that they're referring to. That area puddled up, and so they've taken care of that now.
I think that was it on that one, right?
John, anything to add?
No, I'm
You
satisfied.
know, that water goes down back to the drain easement?
Yeah, it eventually makes its way
Okay.
to the drainage easement.
Through the drain system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody in the audience, questions, comments? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close?
Second.
Moved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion to issue a general stormwater management permit
Or
for the single-family home for lot
Lot one.
Lot one.
Oh, lots.
Number one.
Number 1, lot 7.
Right.
make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Then we have number 6.
Technical difficulties.
This is
Okay.
6 Lamppost Lane, Lot 1. And the changes that we were asked to make, there was 3 changes on this one. To move the outlet pipe of the detention pond basically as far away towards the center of the property, away from the abutters land, which we did. We were asked to move it in that area. We were asked to maintain a 5-foot gap to the property line before the grading started for the detention pond, which I highlighted in red right down here. And then we were also asked to add a note to construct a keyed impervious barrier down 5 feet around the berm of the detention pond, so I added that note on there.
John, anything to add?
Nothing? No, I'm
Okay.
satisfied.
Any questions, comments, audience? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to issue a general stormwater management permit for number 6 Lamppost Lane, Lot 1.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And next, we have number 14, Lot 3, Lamppost Lane.
Which one are we doing, 14? Okay. that it?
Okay.
So on this one, we were asked to extend the retaining wall to the westerly property line, which we did, and we also moved the grading to maximize the yard in that area, which we were requested to do also. Those are the only changes on that one.
John, anything?
All set, I reviewed it.
All right. Audience, any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And I will entertain a motion to issue a general stormwater management permit for 14 Lamppost Lane, Lot 3.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Does this one need a certificate of compliance as well? I mean, water conditions, the notice of intent.
Were you outside the,
We're up to the 50-foot buffer on this one.
okay. So they'll need a
General,
order of conditions too.
I'll entertain a motion to issue a general order of conditions.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
The other lots that were on, they were all closed out?
Yes.
The order of
Yep.
conditions was issued. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again.
John, do we want to go on to 11 Jewel Drive? Or-
Evan, are you in the meeting yet?
Yes, I'm back.
You wanna go back to 506?
Okay, yep, nope, if 506 is ready, we will,
Can you present?
Yes, I can. Yeah,
All right, might be easier for you to do it.
no problem.
and John, do we need the lights off?
Go ahead and open the
Let me-
hearing and I'll get this stuff ready.
It was opened.
Oh, okay.
Didn't we?
Very good.
Didn't we already open it?
Yes,
I think so.
yep.
Okay, very good. Well, for the record, it's Evan Watson with W Engineering. I'm representing the applicants, Charlie Macy.
I'm gonna turn the volume up a little bit.
All right, it looks like we're sharing now. Everybody see the plan on the screen?
Not very well. Not very well.
Let me try one more thing.
Was that better?
No.
Phew.
I think if you click the X on the host controls, it might make the screen a little bigger that he's sharing. Like on the big white box that says host controls, there's an X. On
Where
the
is
top
that?
right
Does that look
corner.
okay?
Top right corner. Yep. That didn't help very much. Usually there's a full screen mode. you
But
can
does it
full
look
screen.
dark?
Where can we do a full screen? Is it here?
Try the three little dots at the bottom near the hang up button.
Yeah, we do have.
Yeah, full
Uh,
Can
screen.
you see that okay?
Wait a minute.
There we go.
A little better. Thank you.
That's better.
I do a lot of Zoom meetings.
So is that working out?
Why do we have these though?
Let's see, first off, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
yep,
Yeah.
Okay, so you can hear me, and how, can you see the screen?
yep.
Okay. So, here we are at 506 North Elm Street. We have a
Hey, Evan?
proposed duplex
Evan?
and driveway.
Evan?
with North Elm Street.
Evan, can I interrupt you?
The wetland resource area
Yes.
is all the way over here to the west, so the entire site here is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We have a two-family home. It has, each unit has its own septic system in the back, and then we come down a shared driveway in North Elm Street. Again, we're applying for a stormwater management permit. So I'm showing BMPs during construction of some straw wattles, concrete washout bins, and a construction entrance. And post-construction, we have a roof infiltrator with a Cultec 100 drywall. So each side will get drywall. And then for the driveway, we didn't have too much room on this particular lot, so we went with a trench drain across the front and then some leaching galleys underneath the driveway. And I presented some drainage calculations. It shows that the piping and that the storm I used was the 50-year storm, 50-year one-day storm as in your regs. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody should have any.
What I think I can do is if we can have Evan stop sharing.
Yep.
And I'll call it up, and then the audience will be able to see a little bit more detail
Okay.
possibly. Can you hear me, Evan?
You're a little muffled, but I think I can make it out. I can hear you.
All right, stop sharing then.
Oh, stop sharing. Okay,
Yeah.
yep. But you asked me to stop staring.
Wait a minute. I got it. How do I minimize this thing?
Press escape on your keyboard. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're hired.
Can you come every Tuesday?
Up at the top. Other way.
Oh, it's number one. We skipped
Yep.
it.
Second one down. Third one down.
There it is. Okay.
Boy, that's not very good either.
It's a little better.
There you go.
Can you see it all right?
Well, as
Yes.
good as we'll get it. Maybe another one.
There we go.
Yeah, that was the septic plan before we filed for the stormwater permit.
All right, so, I reviewed the filing, and he's met all the requirements, has shown all the required BMPs that we have, that's required. And this plan, at this point right here, has a trench drain that's gonna prevent the water from coming out onto, North Elm Street and impacting the town's drainage system. And it'll go underground underneath the driveway. And he's sized it to handle the flow that's generated by the driveway. So I think at that point, he's met all the requirements, but if any of the abutters have any concerns, between Evan and I, we might be able to explain them.
Commissioners, any questions?
On the 50-year flood, was it 1 day, whatever? What's the difference if it was a 100-year flood?
Can you hear that, Evan?
So could you repeat the question for me?
What would it be if you had if it was a 100-year flood? What would you have to do to it to change it?
Well, again, I used the static method, so I think what we'd have to do is probably double the size of that infiltration area. You know, I'm running that I'm kind of running out of room through there. I know the regulations, not your regulations, but the state stormwater regulations ask that you typically meet the 2 and 10-year storms, let's call it the 50-year storm, and evaluate what happens at the 100. So for the 100-year storm, being that the only amount of water that actually goes off the site from this driveway, there's a high point where that the note of the word gas service points to is about where the high point is. So there's not a whole lot of water that actually comes off of this site. So I'm personally not concerned about flooding anybody out with any extra water beyond the 50-year storm.
So, I myself would
And then
recommend.
everything else, past that high point goes back and flows across pervious areas, across grass areas on the site.
I myself would prefer it to be a 100-year flood. So would that be a problem to do?
Did you hear that, Evan?
Yeah, if the 100-year storm would be a problem, let me just take a look. Right now I'm doing about 6.8 inches of rain. And depending on who you talk to, this 100-year storm, we used to say it was 7 inches of rain, but with the new climate data, they say it's about 8.5 inches of rain. So we'd have to add a couple of those leaching pits, and it's getting a little pricey, to be honest with you. So I'd like to be able to say I meet the regulations with the 50-year storm, but if it's a deal breaker, we can go 100.
Well, that's my opinion. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about it, but I would recommend it to be a 100-year flood.
John, what do you think?
Um, I would say that if it's a real concern, that the cost is probably a little bit more, obviously, but it's not something that would make the project impossible economically. So I think you're justified if you feel that way to ask for it.
I agree with you, Lee. I think the 100 actually is kind of a standard. We've kind of been using it
As of
all
right
along.
now, yeah, now the way things have been going, it's
Right.
basically
I
a
mean,
standard now.
Things are changing, you know.
That's the way I
So
feel.
why going backwards?
So just for clarification, where we have a driveway spilling out into a town way, we'll be setting a precedent for 100-year
Yep.
storage. And that way, I can advise any future developer or their engineer that that's what we're expecting.
Yep.
When you design a trench drain, it's a plate that runs across, I assume.
Yes.
How do you prevent it from overrunning that plate when it's really raining?
They have a trench drain design that's capable of handling a 100-year storm.
So
it's
are
not
there
a
baffles or?
So it's a grate with
Yeah.
large gaps in it, not enough to become a safety factor, but
Right.
bigger than the type that you might find at Lowe's for some type of drain.
Isn't that
yard.
kind of like on the street drains too, like the squares? They got bigger ones compared to smaller ones?
They have a more or less slotted
That's why, yeah.
grate instead of the square or rectangular grates.
So the water comes down the driveway and it just runs in?
Yes.
It doesn't run right over the top of it
Well,
necessarily?
as long as it's maintained and
Yeah.
doesn't freeze up,
Yeah.
it will go in the drain system.
All right.
If it's not sized for 100-year, it would
Yes.
run right over
So
the top.
that's width probably too, and
Yeah,
whatever.
it's extra wide and the grates are farther apart. I mean, the spaces are farther apart.
All right.
Your typical roadway catch basin is not designed for a 100-year storm.
Okay.
And it's usually sized to handle about 2.5 cubic feet per second flow, which is quite a bit of water, but you'll see, and often on a hill where there's a number of catch basins, it'll run right over the top of the catch basins because it can't get in quick enough.
Right.
And it'll go to the next one and the next one, and then at the low spot, it creates a pond.
And with things changing, like, and I heard mention that the 8 inches is reflecting the latest.
Climate change data, yeah.
That's good, yeah.
I've got a question.
I would mention, if I could, John, I didn't want to interrupt anybody. Is now a good time to talk?
Sure.
I would mention the calculated flow for this small portion of paved area is only 0.15 CFS. So that's why I think the trench drain would be fine to accept that, you know, even if we increased it. It's just a matter of getting it into the infiltrated unit. So, and part of our operation and maintenance plan, that's directly on the plan. It directs the homeowner or the property owner to clean or inspect the grate every spring, make sure it's clean.
Offhand, did you spec out your type of trench drain?
Yeah, I have trench drain by Shea Concrete or approved equal with 8-inch by 3-foot barb with grading on it.
All right, I'll take a look at that, and if the commission approves it, we may specify one that we've approved in the past.
That's fine. It's if there's one that's works with you guys within your experience that works better, I'm happy to put down a plan, no problem.
Good.
Any other questions for the commissioners?
How many trees is he planning on cutting?
How many what?
Trees?
You already cut
Already
them all.
cut
They
them
already
all.
wiped it
Well,
out.
okay, how many trees did you cut?
A ton. Without knowing, without telling us, yeah,
Yeah.
a ton.
Yeah, I have a question about that. How come this is the first time we've been notified
Yeah,
of
nothing
this
about it.
whole entire thing?
And I live at 516, which like my kids were like, oh my gosh, there's a huge like
Right here?
thing coming in, street.
Well,
like,
he
cut it
actually-
off.
Yeah,
All the work is done outside of the
Yeah.
wetland line, so there's no
jurisdiction.
town bylaw or state regulations as far as the wetlands, so there wouldn't be a filing for that. It's our general stormwater bylaw that we have in town that he has to file for. So that's why you all got notifications for this hearing. The only other thing that would have been a possible subdivision of the lot if that had happened with the planning board.
Well, it was
Yeah, it was,
subdivided.
yeah. It was
part of
subdivided.
Pillsbury Florist, all land, and then it was broken down into 2 lots that they sold off.
And I was told it was gonna be a colonial 1-family that was
Yep.
going in, and I was not told that it was gonna be a 2-family until we got the
I
letter.
can speak to that, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, so this lot was created by a Form A approval not required process. It's technically not considered a subdivision under the subdivision control law. So it just required, it's basically an as of right property. And then the use of a 2-family home is also allowed under zoning as a by right use. So there's no abutter notification required. And then as you just mentioned, there's no work within a regulated area within 100 feet of any resource area. So we do not have to file for any abutter notification. Which, if you think about it, is a good thing. We're not doing
someone showed up.
larger subdivisions of the property. We're not in areas that are going to impact other people by being too close to the wetlands. And it was only the stormwater regulation that asked us to notify of this.
And what?
Is that clear? Or
Well, yeah, but I mean, it looks like he's 23 feet off of the edge of the back of my property right there. I'm on 10 Brooks Place.
So you'd be up in the back here?
Yeah, I mean, am I looking at this correctly?
So-
That's where the septic's, yeah.
So this is the overall plan, where you have North Elm Street
Yeah.
through here. Their frontage that they qualified under the zoning is down here, and their driveway is up here. And so the planning board approved this lot, as Evan said, as a Form A, which isn't doesn't require a butter notification. As you can tell though, the access through that area would be all through wetlands, which would be impossible.
Yeah.
So something needs to be done about zoning requirements not allowing this part to be used as frontage for a lot when you can't actually use it, because frontage means you have access to your lot.
Right.
But that's water over the dam, they've already approved it, but somebody in town should petition to change that so that people can't use wetlands as their frontage and come in from a different direction. And I'll shut up about that because it's not conservation, just happens to be a pet peeve of mine.
But I would say putting
It wouldn't get
the
passed,
building
though.
square in the middle of a wetland would
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
not be a smart move.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
I mean, it's a
That's-
non-buildable square.
That's the
Right.
building square right there, and this can't be built. So you must have this one, is that yours? Right here?
So, well,
This
So
is
you're the one
fence.
over on this
Other
side?
yes.
Oh, this
So
one.
you're the
Right.
23.3 feet from the
Yes.
corner of the foundation
Yes,
to your property line,
yeah, I mean.
which,
So the zoning setback is actually 20 feet, so that house could technically be 20 feet away from the property line and still meet zoning.
That's terrible.
What about on the actual driveway and 516, because what's the difference, how much space is there between the driveways? I mean, it's gotta be like 3 feet, if that.
So 516 is here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but their driveway going up, I mean, it's literally like 3 trees like worth, it's so small. And to have traffic for two families going up and down, I mean,
Yeah.
and the kids whoever owns that house does not have a big yard, so my kids are in the driveway all the time. So to have cars coming in and out, and if that's the only way in, because you can't use the frontage on the other side, they're gonna be, I mean, that's real narrow.
Real narrow. Is there a fence going up there? What is the bubble along the side?
That's the edge of the woods.
not
Evan, can
woods,
you
it's
provide
woods
a,
and trees.
Took down?
There's no woods there.
There's no woods
They
there.
cut it all down.
Yeah, they cut it all down.
Evan, could
And-
you give us a distance between the driveway and the property line on the right side of the driveway?
Yeah, if you can give me just 1 minute, I'll bring up my drawing and measure that.
Can I also ask, in front of my house, I'm at 520, and we already have big puddles in front of our driveways.
Both of us get
Both
puddles.
of us do. So this is just gonna create more icing and puddling in front of my property as well.
So 520 would be in here?
Yeah,
possibly?
there's always a big puddle in
Huge
front of both of
puddles.
us, so if that grate doesn't work, it's just gonna create a big puddle, there's no real drainage around there.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, there's nothing
Yes,
there.
there's nothing
And that,
there.
I'm sorry, and like, North Elm is busy, it is a busy road, if that gets icy, I mean, they already sit across, I mean, the West Bridgewater police have been amazing, they sit across from my house and like take out speeders, but if it gets icy, it's gonna be worse. And we've had accidents
Yes.
by our house, and they
In
like,
front- in my drive- in
they
my
go into
front yard.
our yard, it's not like there's any guardrails or buffers or anything.
They hit the telephone pole in front of our yard already.
But that's a different issue.
Okay, I know.
Yes, but
I
it's
mean,
just-
a
it's
different
icy and
issue than
puddly
what's
and-
going on here,
Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully it doesn't, well, shouldn't add to it, you know.
Yeah.
20 feet was the measurement that between here, the edge of the driveway, and the property line.
So like, let's count out 20 feet. I mean, 20 feet is not a lot.
How many feet is it supposed to be?
To what?
How many feet
What's the
is
minimum?
it supposed to be? What's the regulation?
There isn't any requirement
For
set back for the
driveways?
driveway.
Okay.
Or from the edge of the property line though, obviously, because.
Right. So most of the setback for zoning is all related to structures, houses, pools,
Are there
sheds.
setbacks for septic systems? Cause we're a rear abutter and the septic system's gonna be right on our property line.
So 10 foot is the state minimum,
Okay.
and let's see how much he shows there. He's got 14.
14.2.
14.2.
And there's another measurement that says 5 something, what's that?
5.6 is the setback between the bottom toe of the slope
Okay.
from the fill on the system to the property line, and 5 is minimum.
feet.
Yeah, that's, there's a stone wall there, I think, through the woods.
Yeah, there's an old, like, historic rock wall that obviously we're concerned about something happening to it.
Any other questions or comments on it? You know,
At least
unfortunately.
we can answer in here.
Right, I mean, we can get your answers, we can't necessarily,
And hopefully we helped a little bit with the water.
solve the
Going
problem.
50 to
Hopefully by-
100 yeah.
yeah, putting the
Going back
drain
to
in
the
at the front.
stormwater,
Mhm.
you said at the gas line, that's the high point, and to be flowing out to the street. From that high point flowing back, where does that water go? What's he gonna do with that, all that water?
Towards the house?
Where's that gonna go,
So-
besides in my backyard?
Yeah.
I can describe that. So you can see there's a little low point in the driveway right before the garage, and then it goes around the house, and then the existing topography goes from 118, and it goes towards the left, towards the wetlands. So the soil here is very sandy. We have very good perk rates on this site. So as such, if you have stormwater flowing across grass and woodsy areas, it does a really good job of infiltrating it, especially if you have at least 50 feet for it to go across. So I don't anticipate anybody in the area seeing any difference as far as stormwater in the back, and as far as in the front, you'll probably see an improvement, given that we've been asked to put a trench grate that can infiltrate up to the 100-year storm.
So this is the
I'd like to see a closer look at them numbers, how we come up with that, we really would. I mean, this doesn't really tell you anything, it's just a pretty picture.
This is 118 contour, 117, 116. So he's correct in that it's gonna flow back towards the house and spread out or go around the house and around the septic system. And then the only thing he needs to deal with is the high point that's here, the part that flows this way, and he's gonna take the 100-year storm there. And you can tell that that's 118 here, so
In the middle, 'cause if that's.
the high point is right in here, 18, 17, 16, so he's got to handle the paved runoff from the paved driveway so that it gets in the trench drain. And that should pretty much take care of any concerns about the ponding or anything like that. And so I think, as Lee indicates, by his requesting this, it should address some of the problems that may have been there in the past.
If not, hopefully help a little bit more.
And if it doesn't?
One other question, the roof
Ponding
runoff.
there now, so it's like, what are you gonna do, right?
Well, my house is 10 Brooks Place, like I said before, and we're the highest in the neighborhood, well, me and this cluster of people here. So we don't have wet basements, and now you're changing everything, and we're gonna have wet basements possibly, you know what I mean? Cause everybody around us
No,
that we
if
can see.
you look at the contours,
Yeah,
though,
by
the
right, it
engineer.
shouldn't affect you.
Yeah.
Well, but we will be affected. We're rear to the left. So what you just said is that all the rainwater is going to go back behind their house, which is where our house is.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah,
There's
so we have
nothing there.
22, goes 14, 13, 12, 11. And on this plan, I don't know exactly what north is, but it goes from right to left. So that stone wall, I expect that would actually make a little barrier there. And we didn't create up to the stone wall for the main purpose to let our stormwater go around the septic system and head towards the wetland where it's going right now.
How are you
And keep
treating
in
this?
mind, we're infiltrating the roof runoff into the very sandy soil. So that's gonna be just the way it did in pre-development. We have a small amount of impervious area in the driveway that's going to grassed areas. And then the other stuff that goes to the road infiltrating, so. Typically, West Bridgewater has a stormwater management bylaw. In most cases, that is not the case. So typically, we would not do any of that. We would not infiltrate anything. We would not be meeting with this board, and we would not be infiltrating the driveway runoff. So I really feel that this is a belt and suspenders design over what we would normally see, and definitely over what was typically built before the bylaw was in place. So I think that, you know, I appreciate everybody's comments because it's new in the neighborhood. You know, you don't want to have problems when somebody else's new development. From what I do in other communities and other designs I do, this is well and above what would normally be done for a project of this size.
Because it's hard to say. How long has your house been there?
The one behind?
Well, your house.
What is it?
1907 home.
1907 is what it is.
Yeah, my
So-
house was 1905.
Yeah.
Back then, it
1904.
was a lot more different. I mean, you could probably put it, you could probably put it in a wetland area, and then, as you can see up to date today, things have changed, not necessarily that you're wrong, but they're doing everything the right way. Your house probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, I'm not saying it in a bad way,
Right, today's
back
rules.
then, but to today's standards, so when things change over the years, sometimes it does, unfortunately, kinda like mess up the homeowners that are living in the house now. It shouldn't, to the way
Yeah.
it's going on.
Shouldn't.
No, they should
I mean, we
handle
see
everything.
hundreds of these, so
Yeah,
after
sure.
a
But
while.
Yeah.
everything, I would never think, like I said over and over again, I never thought I could see some of these houses where they were growing up in this town where they are now, but they are doing it the right way.
Right, and that's
And
the point of engineering.
We are trying to make it,
Yeah.
make it so they are doing it the right way, so it doesn't help,
Mhm.
hopefully impact you anymore. If not, it might help you guys a little bit.
Do you have water now? Do you have a
A
basement?
little. We do have a basement, yeah. I mean, the grade, we're like the very last house on a dead end street, and the grade is sloping downward, and we're right next to the wetlands.
Is this one?
So we
correct?
do see, yeah, that's us. So we do have moisture already, so that's obviously why
I
it's.
can't imagine it would be.
It shouldn't be any more than what you have now.
Yeah.
Because, I
But-
mean,
Yeah.
the way they should be doing it, what they do it today is.
Right, a well-engineered property is gonna be in your favor, actually.
All of the roof water is going into the ground, that's not running off.
And
on
the surface
top.
water is traveling the same direction it's currently traveling in.
Right.
Maybe a little bit faster in the driveway section, but once it hits the lawn, that'll slow it down.
Of the
And our requirements are
site?
stricter
Yes.
than most, so
I can
it's,
email it to
you know, we look for engineered properties, or otherwise nobody could build because it's, you know.
And like he said, this is more, they've gone far
More
beyond
requirements, yeah.
than they would have to do it in another town, so.
Yeah.
I have a question that's not related, sorry. What number is it gonna be? Because 506 is obviously, you
I don't
know,
know.
used to be closer, so what is the number gonna be?
I
Do we know
asked
that
the,
yet?
I asked the assessors, cause we hate having lot numbers, because, you know, you'll have a file for lot number 2.
Yeah.
And then, about 6 months later, they'll assign a number, and they haven't come up with one yet, so I can't give you an
Okay.
idea, but
Mhm. All right.
it's gotta be between 506 and 516, so maybe 508,
Okay.
And a half.
I'm just.
or 506 and a half. But I did go to the assessors and ask them if they could tell us, and,
Yeah.
they haven't assigned one yet. I really think we shouldn't accept any applications until we have them, but, I don't know if we can force the assessors to do that, just to satisfy us, but. So this is the, general, layout of all the different houses in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that now I have a better understanding of where everyone's mentioning where they live.
I have a question. Why a two-family? Like, why are we like, it's
Because they
a
need to make
small-
money.
I know, that's what I'm feeling, it's very
Yeah.
greedy. It's a small, I can like stand in my driveway and like see her yard.
Yeah.
It's not a big space. And, you know, I think a lot of us aren't against, you know, building in our town. It's just like, why are we shoving so much in a small spot? You know,
So
it's
it's
just,
affecting
it just,
all of us.
to affect everybody. I feel like the
duplex,
people
right?
who move in there, it's like, if it was a single family and they moved in, it would be more of a sense of a community. But to have like a two-family, we know the two-family on North Elm has already, across from Subway, has already flipped like 3 times. It's been on the market. It's just more changeover. I just wonder, like, why go for that in such a small area? I mean, I know it's not an engineering question, or I'm just.
The other one had some other issues.
Yes,
The one
it did.
near Subway,
It's the zoning law, and the zoning, map shows that that's zoned for single-family or two-family, as long as they meet the lot size requirements, the frontage requirements. And
But I'm asking like from like a town perspective. Like I know people can, you can have all the right dimensions, you can have all the things, but you know, all you hear is like people are like, oh, West Bridgewater is, you know, getting too big, and I was like, why are we shoving houses back there? Like so many. I'm not asking. I know it can fit all the requirements,
Yep.
and that's fine. But you guys still have a decision to make if you want to have, if you want to let
and
someone
that's
put
not
two.
even the 40B considerations.
by
It's
matter
affecting
of,
7 families.
by matter of right, because of the way the town zoning is set
Yeah.
up, which is something that's approved at a town meeting probably years ago. For us to say you can't do that, it'd be a violation of their civil rights, their, whatever right they have to develop land.
Yeah.
So we'd be subject to litigation by
Okay.
preventing them from being able to do what they have a matter of right to do.
Okay.
So if the person who's developing it has to purchase the land for such a high amount in order for them to meet their profit expectation, they have to then maximize what they're gonna build there, so.
Oh yeah, I know that. I know they're trying to figure. I know the money part. I didn't know the litigation part, but I knew.
It's almost like I tell people, and I don't know this in a bad way, it's like saying, if you wanted to put an addition on your house,
Yeah.
like an in-law,
Yeah.
who am I to say to you, you
Yeah.
can't do that to your property? It's almost like saying to somebody, you can't do that to your own property. Well,
Yeah.
You
No, I
can't
get
say
that.
that.
I'm just like I was just
It's-
needed to know. I needed to
it's
air
hard
the
to see,
question and
but,
ask it.
Well, it's a big change, and
It
you
is.
know,
It's kinda hard to-
obviously it's been woodland and everything for an awfully long time, and now you're gonna have something there, so.
And Conservation Commission, the Open Space Committee in the town, they all want open space, they don't want this type of thing. But because we have to operate within the law and not infringe on somebody's rights and expose the town to litigation, we have to go along with it even though we can't stand it. And nothing against your client, Evan, but I
you guys
understand
can
what
stand out
they.
there with some picket signs if you like. And
No, I mean, I
see
think
what
I
happens.
have to ask that question. You know what I mean? I think that's the question when you get the piece of paper in the mail that you're like, why are we doing this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, my lot 10 is pretty big there, and we don't have a fence. It was always open to the woods until that big giant Avatar machine came in and cleared
Well,
everything
sure, I
down, and,
understand that.
you know, I mean, and now it's costing me money because I'm gonna have to put a fence up there.
You look at, not to belabor everything, but the Scotland Street development, all those people had a view of that field behind there for forever, and now they're putting 90 houses in there, so.
Yeah.
And they were all the same way. Oh, how can they do that? They can.
And that one's even a little tougher to swallow because it's
Oh.
40B and we have no local bylaw
That's right,
jurisdiction.
they jammed
so.
them in there really tight.
Any other questions relating to the
No, that's a
stormwater?
good shot, yeah, that's a good.
Can I
It's
just
such a small space.
ask one more? So the lot 2 is like the new lot they created. The rest of the lot is wetlands. They can't do anything else with it, correct?
No.
Right.
Okay. Just wanna make sure I'm
Basically,
not gonna wake up
anything, let us
tomorrow and
know.
have more land cleared
Well, if you
behind my
do
house
call,
that.
Give us
You do
a
call.
Okay.
Yes, call us, we'll do enforcement.
Okay.
Oh, really?
And because they're not going
Yeah.
within 100 feet, they didn't have to file with the town. And therefore, we can't require them to put up markers, which we do on all permits now, stating that it's a do not touch, do not disturb zone protected.
We have that on our property.
Right,
Yep.
which they don't have to do that here because it's not a wetland buffer.
Correct.
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
so until they violate it, they don't have
Okay,
to put
well,
markers
we'll keep
on.
our eyes peeled for you guys.
Yeah, well, it is a small space, but they just managed to squeeze it in
Yep.
under the,
Well, they use the wetlands as the frontage. which is
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't believe that that's
sort of
allowed.
BS deal.
And that goes,
It is
that,
like a
that,
loophole.
that doesn't sit good with me either.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, now we can all band together and get that changed.
Well,
Yeah, right.
Well,
had we known prior,
I
we
know.
could have banded together.
Exactly,
Yeah.
before when it was on the market for a
It's
year
like-
before
it's
they
like
sold it,
closing
you
the door
know?
after the car's out.
Yeah.
Anything else, John?
Unfortunately, I have to recommend that it get a permit with the conditions that were established for the 100-year storm. And then all other normal requirements such as a maintenance agreement that gets recorded, and this permit gets recorded, and if there's any violations, the commission has, under the Stormwater Authority, to go in and have corrections made. So if things aren't operational according to what you've heard and what we've been told, then we have a right to go in and have corrections made.
So I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
John, can I ask one question?
Yep. Go
I
ahead.
had a question, if, we're gonna revise the plan to increase the size to the 100-year storm, that could be done, with the staff, that John could take a look at that and make sure it was okay, and, that could be approved, and we could, have the permit, conditionally approved, tonight, instead of having to come back in January.
Yeah, we don't.
So I stand corrected in that you're right, we are asking for a change and we can't really do it outside of a public hearing. So you can make the change, you don't necessarily have to make a presentation at the next meeting, which would be the 27th, 24th. What's, no,
Stacy's up.
You mean on
the 21st.
21st, yeah.
I can't add 14 and something, okay, 21st.
So you
So,
guys will have another meeting in a couple of weeks?
yes, and for a revision, all you have to get it in is a week ahead of time.
Okay. I can probably have this done, on Monday, so that'll be fine.
Great,
Okay.
so it's a continue.
Entertain a motion to continue?
I'll make the,
Continue.
I'll make the motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Is that it? Lee, you did the second?
Yeah.
All right, you're continued to the next one. If the audience wants to come in and see what they've done to make the change, feel free to do so.
Always welcome.
Will we get another certified letter?
No.
Okay.
So it'll be on the 21st at 6:30.
This is just so horribly upsetting. We all bought our houses knowing what was around us and decided on our houses based on that. And this is upsetting every single one of our lives, like drastically.
Happened to me, not in this town, but in another town, same thing.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Woods,
And like you said,
not anymore.
it's happened up on Scotland
Yeah.
with those people too, but unfortunately, there's not much you can do
Things
about it.
happens.
You, except buy the land. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, we
that's
were
all.
offered it, but, it was an
Little-
awful lot of money to
That's-
spend
well,
on
that's
something
right.
we didn't wanna do anything with,
Yeah,
you
you already
know?
had.
Right, yeah.
We're
So-
trying in town, if we can get good agreements, to buy more of the open space.
Mhm.
You see it come up at the town meetings, but sometimes it's millions of dollars and the town doesn't wanna say, oh, we'll spend that kind of money.
It's just sad because all the wildlife travel
Yep.
Yeah.
that path,
Yeah,
and
no,
now,
I know.
I mean, we've had deer in our yard now, we've never had deer. You know, all the wildlife now is being destroyed, it's just
They're squeezed
horrible.
into smaller and
Of course.
smaller areas.
Yeah, there's nowhere for them to go, I mean, it's a horribly busy
That's
area
why
as
we
it is.
see coyotes and.
Yep.
If any of you want a copy of this plan emailed to you, I can do that. Just I'm on the website with my email address.
I just did.
And we can get you copies.
Thank you.
Well, maybe it'll turn out better than you think.
I don't think so.
I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, I think it's better than 2 houses back there.
No, not
What's the
really.
difference?
Didn't
It's the
there be
same
a lot
amount of
more problems
traffic.
with
I'd
water?
rather two houses.
Well, there'd be a lot more problems with water and septic systems, bigger
Yeah, but
area.
maybe a better population and better traffic.
Yeah,
A single house would have been
True.
sufficient.
yeah.
thought it was zoned
I was
for.
speaking for a different.
That's what I
That's
was
what we were told, it was zoned for a single family.
It wasn't,
Yeah.
There was a lot of lies.
John, I'm having trouble hearing. Was there a vote to continue or just a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you wanna take a picture of that?
So you're all set until the 21st, and you don't even have to appear the 21st if you don't wish to present the plans, as long as the changes are made.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch tomorrow, John.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Yeah. Well, si vous faites quelque chose d'autre.
That concludes our public hearings. Next we have on our agenda administrative, Walnut Street, West Meadowwoods State. It's 2 preliminary discussion.
I'm one of them, but the guys with all the answers are out in the hallway.
Okay. They might be around the corner, maybe?
Yeah, they're right there.
There's
Okay.
another meeting going on next door. I look out the hallway and go, where are all these people coming from?
Who's the next one? Who's the other one?
All right, so we're on, West Mountain.
Yes. Yes. No. It's funny, when I was looking at that, you go by a lot of the developments and houses in Bridgewater, and they're tucking them in behind everywhere,
And
and
they're
there's no
just-
frontage. And it must be that their zoning board allows it, as a zoning variance, to put them in.
And they're just connected by cement slabs for walkways.
Yeah,
Two
I mean,
families.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the
it's
thing.
amazing what's happening in Bridgewater right now with all the houses going in.
Yeah.
And they literally, you have a house and
Any
there's right behind it, a
particular
driveway.
areas or just everywhere?
Everywhere, anywhere they can put them in, it seems that putting one right behind another.
He's in the
They
hallway.
struggled with the big bills at one point, remember?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, okay, we gotta stop this, cause everything is, and now it's again, I don't get it, I don't get why you, this thing's.
I just couldn't believe this one where they put the building square. I'm like, come on, at least put it outside the wetland, maybe make an attempt.
This one?
Yeah, this one here,
Yeah.
you know, the planning board requires the 100 by 100 foot
Yes,
square.
yes.
And they put it right in the front where the frontage was, right in the wetland. And he's gotta be able to build that.
Originally?
Yeah, when you look at the plan that he presented, that square that was on it was.
So the building square for the, planning board only, sets up the shape of the lot. Typically, on a normal lot, the frontage is gotta be more or less square or rectangular and not convoluted and gerrymandered.
To add it all up, yeah.
And so, when they created the requirement for the box to be put in the frontage area, they didn't bother thinking that somebody was gonna try to do one in the wetlands. So all it takes is having the zoning bylaw changed to say that the box can't be in wetland.
Which it
Almost
should.
seems as though
I mean,
it.
But somebody's got to go and petition
Yeah.
them to say, we wanna
Right.
change the bylaw.
So who's the somebody?
Residents,
cool.
10.
I see.
10 residents. If I keep on the soapbox, then I'll be fired. Sorry.
It's reasonable.
Walnut Street?
Yep. Yeah.
What do you got, guys?
That's us.
John's kinda.
Everybody sign in?
Ross.
Good.
So, you
There
guys
was a
have
pen where it
everything
was.
up here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have a better plan.
I've got a couple of colored plans I might put up just to.
Well, since we have the cameras, if you put it up, the camera will be able to see it,
Okay.
and we can talk on the one up on the,
All right.
on the screen.
So, I'm Frank Gallagher, I'm the design engineer. Ben Albanese and Ross Messina are Meadowwood Realty. And so what we have is a preliminary subdivision we filed just recently with the planning board. We haven't had a meeting with them yet. But this is a preliminary subdivision that comes in off of Walnut Street, pretty much right at the town line. You can see it in the upper left-hand corner of the plan.
It's not off West Chestnut?
It's not off of West
That's
Chestnut.
gone?
that's.
Well, no, that's not going.
It's sort of in a state of, you know.
So you might have
flux, I
two.
guess.
So
We
this,
might.
this is where they were gonna be coming in
Yeah.
before and
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
So there's two entrances, one on the north side, which is,
Yes.
okay.
So, so we come in off of Walnut Street, you can see right there. And just into and we kind of pretty quickly hit a wetland area right there. So that is, that's an area that we'd be asking for a fill and replication. It's all BVW, but it is, you know, and it is under the 5,000 square foot requirement. And we could certainly, we don't show any replication area right yet, but we could certainly replicate 2-to-1 versus what we're filling in. And we're proposing a cross culvert underneath the road. So that's one area where we'd be having an actual filling. When you look at some of the other lots, we'd have buffer zone work on several of the lots, but we haven't shown anything there yet. But if you look, you can see that from that initial cul-de-sac, we have another roadway that turns and goes south. And that crosses onto, the land that you're initially looking at is owned by Crowley. It's about 26 acres. And that wetland line has been established. They filed an ANRAD and it's still current. But when you cross to the south, you cross onto Millette, property owned by Millette. And he has done, you know, a fair amount of work on that property, and he's had a wetland delineated, and he's had a top of bank delineated for that brook, but he hasn't filed an ANRAD yet. So we would certainly do that prior to filing anything, you know, filing any kind of a notice of intent with you. But if you look at this road that comes from the south and runs southerly, it kind of runs along a high tension line easement, and then it breaks to the east and it crosses the brook right there. And so we'd have a wetland filling, and we'd have work within the buffer zones, and we'd have work within the riparian zones to make that crossing. We tried to pick a spot that was, you know, as narrow a wetland area as we could get, so that, you know, we'd be minimizing the impact. But in order to hook up with Meadowwood Estates, number one, our first phase, which is what you see on the right side of the plan, we get to a point where we just have to get across the brook.
So in order to get over there, you'd have to cross those wetlands, and if we said no, you couldn't get over there.
Right.
What's the reason you need to connect the two?
Yeah.
Well, our initial, for our Meadowwood Estates 1, if you look on the very right-hand side of the plan, right there.
Yep.
We had a roadway that ran right out to West Chestnut Street in Brockton, right there. We've had some back and forth with the city, and they're not really very receptive to making that connection.
No, connected, yeah.
They see some issues with that. One is that, you know, they have issues or concerns with us coming from a road in Brockton into a subdivision that's essentially in West Bridgewater. And, you know, they have, I think, concerns about the level of traffic on West Chestnut Street. So we're looking to find another alternative.
So
Which would be putting all the traffic onto Walnut Street.
And then back out to West Chestnut.
Yeah.
And the other alternative was to come here and go over the wetlands to be able to make the connection. So if they said no up there, you guys wouldn't be able to do it down here.
No, we need to bring the water main through there too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, so if they say no up there, you guys couldn't come through here at all. Couldn't make a connection to come in at all. That's with the water main and everything?
Um,
But the water main might be coming from your water tower up the street.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying is if our West Chestnut Street access was eliminated and we were denied a wetland crossing here, yeah, I don't think there's another way to really get to the upland portion of this property.
How many proposed homes?
The preliminary that we've shown you is 17 lots. But they're all on the Crowley property.
Right.
The roadway that comes onto Millet's, we haven't shown additional lots, we've just shown a roadway. But if it was approved as a subdivision roadway, there could be, 4 main lots off of it. So there would be, I don't know, I haven't honestly run through it, but there would be.
17 over there.
Yeah, there's 17 on Crowley's. There would probably be at least a dozen off of that roadway on the Millet piece. And then the Meadowwood Estates, the first phase of it was 33 lots, I believe.
And the first phase is what you would construct first? Or are you looking at doing phase 2 first and then phase 1?
Probably.
Probably, yes.
We actually have an approved road in Brockton that goes all the way to the West Bridgewater line. And it's been a point of contention. It was approved under site plan review. We didn't request any buildable lots on that road at that time. And it took it out of the purview of the zoning board, the planning board. And it was approved, and stamped and approved, and it's been an issue ever since. They don't want us coming out. We did a traffic study, the city did a traffic study, and the Department of Transportation did a traffic study. And they found that the increase of traffic on West Chestnut Street was 0.05% or 0.5%. So this is more about politics than reality. And that's how it's been from day one. We can go out that way. So what's been proposed is they want to provide us with water and sewer if we don't go out that way. Now that they're vacillating on that. If you ever dealt with Brockton, there's nothing you can ever rely on when they tell you something. So anyway, we've had that whole road out. Hugh Hurley of the planning board in West Bridgewater wasn't comfortable with that because it wasn't created by a subdivision, it was created by site plan review. So he wanted us to go to Brockton and get a subdivision road approved along, and they wouldn't approve it with our cul-de-sac that prevented us from access. So it's been, back and forth chess game on this. So we've come to the conclusion that we should go out on Walnut Street and get water from West Bridgewater and, not have to deal with Brockton anymore.
So you just figure come over here and ask us?
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do.
John, do you have any comments?
Yeah,
It's preliminary to a great degree. I mean, we don't even see the lot, so what's going on?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so this, I've got a detail that I can show you in the next slide of this area where they're crossing wetlands, filling some wetlands, and obviously encroaching on your 50-foot buffer. In my email to the commission when I sent out all the information, I had mentioned that technically, according to DEP's regulations, that would be considered a limited crossing, and they have a right to go from the frontage area of their lot to the rear portion if they cross wetlands, provided they meet the performance standards. And so, let's say you agreed with DEP and you did allow them to cross the wetlands, replicate, and mitigate for encroachment in the 50-foot buffer. They would then be able to do this area over here and possibly be able to build on this lot at the end of the cul-de-sac. I think there might be enough room between the riparian zone and the wetland lines that they might be able to get one house in here. This lot here is probably no, and this lot is probably no, based on the fact that they couldn't make that 18,000 square foot geometric shape that your regulation requires now for stormwater. So I don't know what they had planned to do on this piece here, but it's basically this lot, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So subtract about maybe 2 or 3. But Frank, is this one considered a lot?
Yeah.
So there's no way that's going to be built
No.
upon. So you've got 14 lots probably. Let's see. 1,
Yeah, I think 3 of those would probably not be able to really be built on.
And so if we looked at just that first section without the part that goes down to the south, it's probably feasible as long as the commission does say it's okay to cross the wetlands and infringe on the buffers as a limited project. But you gotta give mitigation, and the commission can decide what that mitigation would be.
Does the state say it's okay to cross for limited access for a certain reason, as in to be able to get to your property, or is it?
Yeah. So
is it saying it's okay to you can go into it, but you can also create a subdivision in there?
Yes, they allow that you could put a subdivision in there.
Even though it's limited access?
Yeah.
And then that's up to us.
Now, that would be if the Crawleys came in instead of these developers. That's how Crawley could probably get.
A joint venture.
Well, that's the only way we can do it.
Here's where it starts to become an issue. You've already crossed the wetlands under a limited project. That's not now considered a limited project anymore. So they're gonna be encroaching in the 200-foot and 100-foot riparian on both sides of the stream. They're going to be encroaching on the 50-foot buffer. They're going to be doing something in the wetlands. And the commission could approve it, but you'd have to have a real good reason for doing it. And again, this may not be the time to talk about what would that mitigation be that would convince you that you want to let that happen. So I think as long as they're aware of your concerns, this is informal, so you're not going to be taking a vote tonight. So they have to listen to what you are saying as members about this project and have them decide if they're going to step forward on this or whether they're going to say.
So that second crossing, is that a river or is it a
It's a
stream?
river.
Okay, so it would be the 200.
It's protected
That's
until the
fine,
river's
so
up.
that's 200. And the other one up on top is what? Just wetlands?
It's just wetland, it's
So
a
that's-
ditch, basically,
yeah.
ditch system.
So,
just, and it's worth noting, I think, I hope, that even in this second crossing, we're under the 5,000 square foot DEP
It's still crossing
designation.
a river.
Yeah,
200 foot, that's
it is.
a big deal.
But
At
I
least
think
to us it
too,
is. I don't know about you guys, but it is to us.
Now, they could, be required not only by this commission, but if it went to DEP might say, well, yeah, you could cross there, but you're gonna have to bridge it. And there are subdivisions, in surrounding towns that people have built bridges so that the wildlife can still use the river system. And, you know, that might be something that would satisfy the commission, but maybe be cost prohibitive to the developer. I mean, these are all discussion items that need to come out at this point under their conceptual preliminary type plan, so that they know how to make choices and decide what they wanna do.
Because also looking at this preliminary set of plans, it has nothing to do with where the stormwater basins and everything are gonna be, and there's gonna be an awful lot of water and runoff, and as we know.
Never mind, changing the water.
Right, changing how it's going, where it's going, and it's all draining into the West Meadow Brook and tributary and everything downstream. I mean,
That's a protected area.
it's a big project.
So, you know, typically, designing, engineering, and designing the stormwater management system is something that can be accomplished. I mean, they just have to make sure they put it where it's not going to impact the 50-foot buffers, that they have enough, clearance over the water table so that the basin doesn't, not function the way it's designed to be, and those kinds of things. So those are pretty routine engineering, problems that can be resolved real quick. What can't be resolved by them, by engineering, is your concerns about your protected buffers, and that's where they have to get a feeling from you on how you're going to talk about it when it finally comes before you, and what kind of line in the sand that you're gonna draw where you're not gonna budge, and where you are going to budge. So that's what the purpose of discussing tonight, because.
So if this is all said and done as of right now, we said everything's okay to go, how many houses total do you think is gonna be in this development?
let's see, I'd say 65, 70.
So 65, 70, they're all gonna have septic systems, right? Or is there gonna be like a pump system to a big, like,
It's gonna be both,
okay,
most likely.
plus you're gonna hook up to our water, everything like that,
Yep.
so
I mean, that's something.
it's a big,
Is
that's
that
gonna be
something
a
you don't
big-
want us to do, to hook up to your water? I know the water commission was really enthusiastic about it.
Well, of course, because I understand.
But I guess
why
there's,
that.
I mean, they have an excess of water.
Actually,
maybe they don't,
I'm
I don't know.
surprised, yeah.
No, no, but no, I know. I have, well, I like to talk a little bit amongst
Let me-
commissions that separate later on.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
There's still a possibility that Brockton will supply the water and sewer. Would that be, if we weren't putting in septic systems, would that be a plus for you or a minus?
No, to be honest with you, that wouldn't be. I have my own thoughts about it, but that's me.
No, but I mean, with the septic
No.
would be going into the
I mean, that would
regional
change
system.
some things because you wouldn't have the systems in the property
Right,
and the lots itself,
Right.
right.
but
But the aspect of the river is just not
the
something I
whole
can get past.
situation
I
in
can't
that
get
whole
past that.
area up there is just another.
Even, but the mitigation in the front would be reasonable, but we'd have to, that would start a landslide of a million other people trying to do the same thing, and
Well,
we're trying to stay.
We're trying to protect what we have.
I got a
West
question.
Meadows is a big area up there to.
I have a question about the filler up in the front. What is that, and how does it damage the wetlands?
Let's see if I can bring up the next one.
So what they would have to do is have a culvert system to get the water so it flows from one side to the other. There might be multiple culverts going in to allow wildlife access back and forth. Then they would also have to replicate the area that was disturbed. And those are all allowed under DEP's.
And we've done before.
Right, I mean, we can't deny them the access
Yeah.
in to get through that. We can just make sure that they've replicated it and made it as beneficial after they've disturbed it.
Replicate it, what does that mean?
Create new wetlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Create whatever they
Well-
disturb, they have to recreate it in a certain area.
That's a joint, in the same area as the current wetland. So it would be increasing those lots around the edges with
'Cause that's
what they disturbed.
kind of an isolated area too
Right.
at the front, so it could have been just a ditch or something previous that just turned, evolved. But, so, well, like I said,
But you don't wanna do this in two phases, right?
I think we'd have to do it.
I mean, off Walnut Street is one phase, and then the rest is another phase.
Well, we can access from West Chestnut Street. In fact, we already have a road built in Brockton to the West Chestnut Street line that was approved under site plan review and the planning board in Brockton. And then it became a real political issue about traffic, which really isn't in reality an issue, but it might as well be, because that's how it's perceived.
Yeah.
So, we made a proposal to put a cul-de-sac there and come in through Walnut Street, which is what they want us to do all the time. And, that property right there, and what you see there has frontage on Walnut Street and, right to access. So,
But could you develop just that piece? Is that feasible?
could you develop just that piece?
For now, and then,
Well, that's probably.
It's easier
it would
for us
probably
to-
start from that side, but the remainder of it is gonna require that river crossing. To put it in perspective for you, I've been out there, and with him, cause I'd get lost on my own. It's a very narrow, it's a stream, but it's 8 to 10 feet wide. It's not a rolling river. Nevertheless, it's still.
Considered a river, so
It's
it's
still
20 feet.
considered a river under the act, and I understand that, but it's not a big, wide area that we're gonna disturb. It's a very compact little area. And we would, try to do whatever, this board would be comfortable with us doing. And some other things that we wanna do is, we have, wetlands areas there that we would like to, convey to the town. You have some wetlands areas that you have no access to, we wanna give you easements to them. Whatever we can do to be a good neighbor and to calm your fears of what we're doing. We're not out there to rape and plunder.
would you say, is it fair to say there's a lot of unknowns?
Yeah, like how many houses would go out there?
Well, I don't know in terms of.
We know how many that we have some authority over. We're working with the Crowleys because, to work together, it makes it feasible for everybody.
Sure.
George Millette has agreed to give us an easement across that area of his property and that crossing. We can't speak to what he's gonna do, we don't know. He talks about 40 Bs and whatever else. We don't wanna do that. We wanna put in something that's beneficial to the town. We estimated, that it's pretty good tax revenue there. And if we get, water from the town, there's some revenue from the water, I guess.
I know the finance committee over there has plenty of money in the budget for a new school, come on.
That's
Look
what
at those purse strings.
We just had a
60 houses, that's a
special
school.
meeting to address those issues.
That's not, I mean, that's not a lot of kids going to school from
Don't give me that crap. When that school was built, they said it was only supposed to be what, for 100, maybe 100 something new students, and
You mean the high school?
the high school, and whoever was in charge at the time lied right to my face. And when she came back, she agreed to what I said. All the development that was going to be going on, oh, we got it covered.
But what
What are
I
you guys
understood
talking about
it
now?
to be is
Yeah.
that the state would not give you money for what might happen in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
It's only for what was right then.
Yeah.
So we couldn't build for.
Build for the
Well,
future.
I guess personally, I'm looking at that Walnut Street cul-de-sac end of it and saying, to my way of thinking, I can see working with that portion of it fairly easily. The rest, I'm not sure.
So if I could pick up on what you're saying, and that was what was being proposed, I would say that the yellow line that you see up here is the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah.
And you can see that that's quite an impact on the buffer zone
Sure.
in this area. The actual crossing is here with a culvert, and there is a little bit of filling of the wetland here
Mm.
on that side, and obviously a little in this area here as well as the brook and up here. So there's, you know, we'll call it a small amount of wetland filling that can be replicated, and you can require the buffer to be enhanced elsewhere to compensate for the loss of the buffer through the strip.
Right.
I would recommend, if it were coming before the commission on a formal basis, that a open bottom arched culvert would be better than a typical box culvert. Because there has to be a certain amount of clearance to allow critters who are going to be meandering through the wetlands to feel comfortable about going underneath this structure.
There's no water in it, right?
Well, it probably in the
Little bit
spring,
maybe,
it probably
but-
gets a little wet, but it's not like it's a flowing stream.
Right.
Well, this past July.
Well, yeah.
It'd be August next year.
So there is a thing called stream crossing standards, and you'd want to be able to have them apply that here, even though it's not really a stream, because
Right.
we do know that it's intermittently wet. And
Right.
so if there's something that's flowing through there, when it's flooded, it's going to prohibit the wildlife from going through. And so I think they need to do a stream crossing standard there. And that kind of covers that first section to the cul-de-sac, because that's where the cul-de-sac is right there.
And where would the replication be in that section?
It would have to be,
Lots 2 and 11
probably, yes,
would be my guess.
these two lots here,
Yeah, yeah.
or that lot and
I
this
mean,
lot.
I can get my head around that part of it.
Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that you agree to this, but at least it's something that
Yeah.
you can understand. So let's go to the next one and see what we can do for the next one. Oh, this is the same one. I'll just quickly show you. You know, this is a little bit more of a
Lot of
blow up.
flags.
It shows you
Flags.
It shows you how much of the wetlands and the buffer.
Yeah.
So, pardon me, Steve, I didn't share it with you. So this is the end of the cul-de-sac, And that's the outer riparian, inner riparian to the actual West Meadow Brook. Because West Meadow Brook through here might be a 3 or 4 foot wide stream, but West Bridgewater uses the mean annual high water, and that's how that line was developed. So it floods out to that every year, and so that's considered the brook. We have the 50-foot buffer, so it appears with a 35, I think, setback for houses. There may be some room for a house in here in meeting the lot shape requirement that you have in your stormwater regulation. So it's possible that could be developed.
So I think as you said, Mo, a lot of it's the piece in the middle, that unknown.
So, can I say something, please?
Yeah.
So, if we didn't build the road, we stopped at Crowley's property, we just gotta run the water main if we get the water from West Bridgewater. So, the other, George Millette can file later or do what he wants with that piece. We would just run the water main where the road is proposed to get it onto the onto our property, to Meadowbrook. Meadow Woods. So our traffic would go out onto West Chestnut Street if we get the water from you. So that would
this would be the
mean,
path of the water.
Excuse me?
This would be the path of your water.
Yes,
main.
yes, so you still gotta go across, you're crossing there, but less impact because
It's
we're
just
only
water,
gonna run,
yeah.
we're only gonna run the water main, and if it's elevated, we can insulate it. And then you can bridge it right over it. And without even interrupting the stream, you could set all that with a crane. But you'd need to build a roadway out there, but not with all the utilities.
Right.
And the other utilities will all come through Brockton, the power and gas, and same with down there. But you need, I was told the water pipe there where the hydrant is only a 2-inch water pipe. But it would benefit the entire town from us bringing the water main down the street.
You're referring to the 2-inch up on Walnut?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's
You know,
there's no pressure even in that.
There's no pressure in it either, so they're kind of.
That's running into hydrants along Walnut,
Oh,
a
yeah.
2-inch line?
Yeah.
We'd be running an 8-inch pipe with,
Yeah.
with, how
Guess that
frequent
was
are
okay years ago,
hydrants?
huh?
Well, they're every 500 feet,
Every 500 feet would be a hydrant.
a new hydrant.
But to limit it only to Crowley's property, it's a huge expenditure just for like 7
Right.
or 8 lots.
It's not cost effective, so if we were to do that and just put a gravel road in there to run the water main down where it's supposed to be, then knowing George he might be a couple of years away. He's real tough to, as you guys know. I have a better relation with him, so I really didn't even have to twist his arm to show him what we're doing here, but he can benefit from it
What you just
later.
said is, to develop just the Walnut, you can't, it's not cost effective. to
That's
do
right.
Well,
If we had to
without
run the
doing it
water,
all.
to
We
run
have
the water main
3,500
down.
feet,
Yeah.
linear feet
Right.
of 8-inch pipe to put down. And the town is, not gonna, participate in the cost of that. Although it's on a public way, and it's gonna be
Right.
servicing a lot of
All them
properties
houses.
that aren't in our subdivision.
Mm.
There's another property on the other side that's making noise on the other side of Walnut Street. There's been some
On the
discussion.
corner there?
Huh?
On the corner?
Yeah.
Of Walnut and West Chestnut?
Yeah, way up in there. I don't know a whole lot about
Isn't that
that.
Bertarelli's land?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
no, it's
Meeting
who's
No,
it?
there's two pieces there. Bertarelli owns a corner out on the, where the blinking light is.
There's another one behind
He's
it.
got like 5 acres there.
Then you got
David Lynch tried to go in there and they wouldn't change the
Oh,
zone.
the tow company?
Yes.
Yeah, but we'd have to, that's a huge expenditure, putting that 8-inch pipe in. Now, we can't put plastic pipe. They won't allow what the Water Commission wants, malleable iron, which is 3 times more money.
Yeah, so you're setting up the whole road for development, it's all over the road.
Well, we're gonna go down the shoulder,
No, we go down the shoulder.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying.
There's an easement all the way
but
down.
that would be like a lot less impact on the entire project. We could do down here at Crowley's, do the piece that we own up top. The traffic,
go out West
the
Chestnut.
traffic will be minimal because there's only, you're gonna lose house lots for your drainage, your retention and detention area. So the parcel that we have with the 30-something lots, you're probably gonna lose a couple of lots. And that's the area that I think somebody asked about getting out to the wetlands, Ben, or?
Yeah, I've discussed it with John before.
Yeah.
There's an area that the town owns that they have no access to, that we could grant them access to. And there's a lot of trails and things out there we wanna preserve. I mean, we wanna make it attractive for the people that are gonna
Well,
live
even
there.
the residents, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the residents of West Bridgewater. But let me ask this, other than us scrapping the whole project, which you probably find most desirable, what would you find palatable, if we did something, if we modified this plan? What would make you a little more comfortable with it?
Let me get to the next one, so we can discuss that a little bit.
That's the crossing, right? That's the river crossing.
So this is,
Yeah.
this is the actual river crossing, and let me,
Yeah.
get Steve so he can see it. So, as a roadway crossing, the culvert system here would probably, have to be upgraded to some type of a bridge or arch, to even satisfy DEP. It may not satisfy this commission, but I think if DEP got involved, they would probably want this bridged so that you were not impacting any of this blue at all, so that there was a sufficient span and height so that the riparian zone could be somewhat functional. The commission itself uses the 50-foot buffer as a no-touch, and so that's the yellow lines, and the riparian zones are the 100 and the 200 on both sides, and you can only disturb 10% of the riverfront area in the outer 100, which is this section in here and this section in here. So it might not even pass
Right.
that particular standard in the Rivers Act requirements. So doing a water main crossing you might be able to get that approved. I'm not speaking for the commission, but you might be able to get that approved because there's a lot less impact.
Right.
But you know that George would wanna come in later on with something and have to face the same problem.
Yeah.
No.
Because we don't wanna see it segmented, where you do this section and you get a crossing, and then George comes in and says, well, I'm taking off from, let's call it the Crowley Road, and I'm gonna cross here, so it's only one crossing. Well, when you take the overall concept, it's, you can't segment it into groups and then take advantage of it. It would have to be,
Well, his project would be completely separate from anything. All we have from him is an easement.
yeah.
And whatever he does is something entirely different.
But since
And it's different ownership.
Ross, right?
Gosh, yeah.
Has a relationship with him yet, at least let George know
It's not that
that's gonna be a hard road of.
Nobody has a good relationship.
Oh, he thinks he can, I don't even wanna go there, but he drives me nuts with, he has no access to his property, because he would have to come across Crowley's property.
Yeah.
So, John, don't you think that, if George Millette came in, if we ended our road at his northern boundary, and
He could come in that
you know,
side.
we'd have to give him access, I think the planning board would want that. And if he came in as a separate applicant with a separate project, wouldn't he have a legitimate case then to say, well, you know, you guys have to give me this one crossing, because otherwise you're denying me the highest use of my
No,
property?
because in order for this to fly, even if it's the road or water line, he's an applicant and you guys are an applicant. It's all gonna be tied together, and the condition will be that you can't build a road and do a second crossing.
But John, he really wouldn't need to cross if he comes through the backside of us, and then he comes through Crowley's property.
And cul-de-sacs on either side?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
You wouldn't have to
possible.
cross the river.
It's
No, right.
possible.
The only thing you gotta cross.
Come in
the-
from either side.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
The only thing you're gonna cross the river
road,
with
just-
is
Right,
water.
no road, it would just
Yeah,
be,
just a water line.
Yes.
So you know, the water's the key issue is the water.
Sure. And at that
And you know,
point-
there's a possibility that we'd get the water for Brockton and not the sewer. Then we wouldn't really have to do anything
No,
there.
because we can't go out.
Well, he could get the yeah, we can't get out.
We can't get out. So
Well,
we
yeah,
really
we
wanna.
can get out, we can get out on Ash Street Extension.
Well, yeah, we do, that's right, we have two ways. So you
So-
really have three
so
ways.
there's
out.
possible-
So you're right,
Abilities, I
there's a
guess,
lot of,
best
there's a
you
lot
can
of
say.
unknowns here, but we wanna get a sense of what your concerns were and what you feel comfortable with and what, you know, how we need to proceed. So we gotta get pretty creative, I guess.
Yeah, so it looks as if, and I'm, again, only speaking from what I'm gathering, listening to the commission, that they don't mind the first crossing because you might be entitled to it.
Right.
But you're gonna have to do a lot of mitigation, and you're gonna have to be creative, as you say, with the type of culvert system, that kind of thing.
Right.
The commission doesn't seem to have an appetite to allow a road to cross a second resource area.
Well, is it more that because it's a river?
Yes.
If it was more that kind of, you know, a lesser disruptive type of,
Not really.
as the replication. Well, I mean, the river seems to be a more sensitive
Well, I
issue.
mean, that's sensitive because it is a.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
It just
and I-
happens to be more sensitive, but
I understand that.
just still in being able to cross something like that, it's just, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, it kind of violates your sensibilities.
So the
I
water
understand.
crossing is iffy, but it's more palatable.
Palatable, yeah.
Paddled, anyway.
Yeah,
We know what you mean.
Let me take another swig of my, but that's not even a guarantee, but a road seems to be out of the question. So with all of those ideas, it seems that you can regroup your thinking and figure out how you might wanna proceed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad you couldn't get, for your use, the shortest distance of 2 points to get your water main across that river area.
That's the
Yeah,
shortest.
that's
I
the
mean,
shortest
it'd be-
part.
Right, I mean, it's the narrowest part of the river, but it's the longest distance to get there.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
see what I'm saying? I mean, if you could have gone to the northern part, it would have been a larger riverfront area, but it would have been a shorter
Straighter
distance for
line.
you to get across.
Right,
I mean,
but it's wide up there.
Right, you're stuck trying to get all the way down there with your road or access.
Yeah, but if you come in from both ways,
Right,
Where would you run sewer lines for the, off the Walnut Street area?
There's a saw right
We
there.
already have it.
So you
The
could
main
run it
sewer
right
line,
And then on,
main
the
sewer
main
line's
saw
on
line
our property.
is on our property. There's a
Okay.
36-inch saw main that's 22 feet in the ground.
So you'd be okay on either end.
And we already have the water stems out there
So if
too.
we were to say, okay, you could do the sewage, what would Brockton say to that? For all those homes?
They want you to go out the other way, but we have two ways.
But I mean, would they say, okay, oh, sure, bring more sewage in, no
Well,
problem?
Oh, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
They don't care about that, but they got a problem with you guys crossing the.
Yeah, yeah.
No, they just have a
First
problem
one,
with
'cause
us
I-
guys, period.
Oh, all right.
That's the real story.
Put my boxes on it.
Because here's
Okay,
what they
go
have
on.
for sewer.
Yeah.
They have 2 million gallons a
thought
day
getting creative.
excess capacity.
On their worst day.
On their worst day, you divide it by 240 gallons per house, you get 8,333 houses that they can service. So, reaching capacity
That one?
is not a real answer.
Now, does water, flooding
Yes.
water, does that have anything to do with kinda going into the sewage, like from drains or anything like that?
From,
Yeah, no, when it rains, they have areas that got broken pipes everywhere.
they fixed them all though, so now.
They say they fixed them all.
So
Yeah.
now they have 18 million gallons allowed capacity. On their worst day, they use 16. Most of the time, it's even less. So they have a huge amount of excess capacity but they use that as a red herring for stopping things. They don't let facts and reality get in their way at all.
They give it to who they wanna give it. They just gave it to Terry Edwards for I don't know how many hundreds of units he's building.
Where's that?
Just throwing this
Yeah.
out as a thought to get your water.
Yeah,
If you were to take and bring it down this point to here,
yeah,
Yeah.
and then straight across to here,
yeah, we can do that.
you would avoid the whole wetland issue with the road down at this point.
No, it's
There's no
over there.
wetlands down there.
Right, but I'm saying, right now on your plan,
Yeah,
John can bring this up, the road goes down to here,
yeah.
and there's another wetland area. I'm just trying to get it as far away from the wetland area for you to
Either
get your
way,
access.
you need to cross right there.
Right, you're still gonna have to cross, but if
Yep.
you cross here with your water main,
Well, Frank did
Oh,
it
yeah, we
that
can
way
go that way.
because
So
it
it's-
was feasible for future development in there.
You guys looking for the, yeah.
But you'd
easiest
still
way to-
get it.
right, I'm just
But they're also
furthest
gotta-
away from,
But
right.
they also gotta look at the future though too, so they're trying to look for whoever's gonna look at.
Is this a
I don't-
wetland?
No.
No. Oh,
That-
right there,
it's
yeah.
this
Yeah,
area
that
here
is-
that we had.
Yeah, that's wetland. And that little finger that goes up, that dotted line, a little to your right.
Okay.
To your right, a little more. Oh, they're right there.
Yeah.
That's wetland.
That's wetland too.
And then you have some
Okay.
wetland on that right-hand side that we talked about before, George.
Okay, so this area here.
These three.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
that,
okay.
and then to the right.
But
of
they
that.
could possibly go higher, to the north or.
Right, I was just,
Well, I mean, we could go up there, but it's much wider.
right, to
No,
cross.
no, what he meant
Right
is
where the
straight
crossing
across.
is, and just bring it there, I mean,
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah.
Right, I was just trying to keep you from having to disturb as least amount of wetland area as you can, with
Yeah,
a
no.
50-foot no touch, and keep it out without.
Yeah.
Where would it come in if it was West Bridgewater?
I'm sorry?
If it was water from West Bridgewater, where would the main come in?
At the
Maybe
water
come up on
tank,
Walnut Street.
Off of Walnut Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
all the way.
Right, all the way to the Brockton line.
Wow.
Cause that's where Crowley's property is literally on the line. And we come in through there with the water main.
It's
Okay.
gonna roughly cost $500,000 to run the pipe up.
Easy.
Yeah, or more.
Yep.
So that's why, I mean,
With restoration of the people's yards and,
So if you did that, that would be worth doing that? $500,000 doing
Yeah.
that?
yeah.
So you guys, nowadays, that's one house.
No, I understand. So, no wonder why you have no problem doing it. No wonder
Well,
why you have no problem
I'm in
doing
the
it, because
business,
some
so I,
people say,
I do the work myself.
No, I understand, but
company
it's just
does.
like, it seems like it's, I'll keep my mouth.
Numbers are ridiculous now.
Yeah.
It's like.
Oh, I'm not even thinking about that.
Oh,
You've seen the house prices lately.
No, I know.
they're crazy.
So I think, not to belabor it or
Yeah,
anything,
right,
but I
right.
think you get the ideas.
Yeah.
That they have some heartburn on that second crossing.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee that they're not gonna have heartburn with a water line crossing, but it's at least less impact on the.
Yeah.
So, John, do we have to go to the state for that, for the wetlands, to run the water pipe? Or is that something the commission here can okay?
Well, I don't know the legal part of water extensions and those kind of things, but
Yeah.
the work itself would have to be approved by the commission.
Yeah.
Cause I did one in Easton and we put two big walls up, I think we went 100 feet. We went right through the, cause they filled, you know, we put two big wing walls up, but that was years ago, so the rules change all the time. But
As
in
long as-
on the Brockton side.
Just as little disturbances
We put a culvert in
possible.
already. And we just gotta insulate
Yeah,
the
we,
pipe going over.
we did on the Brockton side, just finished it. It was a small wetlands crossing.
As long as
Right
we're
in-
under 5,000 square
Right.
feet, it's a local. Over 5,000, then I think it's a state.
Then it goes to the Southeast Regional Office under a 401 water quality.
So if George had a crossing easterly of this, it would all be grouped in together?
If he did what?
If he wanted to do it, if George wanted to do another crossing on his property, he's stuck with that. He has none, he has no crossings.
All those lots are in different.
He has no relief
Unless
on
we-
his property.
Unless we relieve them, right?
I don't know if you can do that honestly, and I don't know if you can preclude him from his relief on his property because something that's being done on an adjacent property.
What's the property, is it, what zone, what's it
George,
zoned for?
they're all zoned residential.
It's all residential.
This whole area is residential.
So we do have them.
So they're kinda, you know, the property rights are there to do the development, cause we're not looking for relief on a zoning issue.
But we do have bylaws to hold up.
That's the key.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
well, if you
So
comply
that
with the
gives
bylaws.
us the right to tell George, he can't do that if he,
Well, if he meets all the bylaws and meets all the regulations, he's got a right to do it.
Well, let's go back to if the commission entertains something that involves George's property, he's gonna be an applicant and you're gonna be an applicant, all rolled into, together, because we can't permit something on somebody else's land without them being an applicant. And so the order of conditions is gonna apply to him, and it's gonna say, you're not building road B, you're only extending the water main. Or you're building road B down to a cul-de-sac and stopping and then coming in from the other direction.
even if it is an easement, right?
Because we can't let a project be segmented to the point where you do one and get one crossing, then you do another and get another crossing.
Well, what's the benchmark that makes it one project?
Because he's gonna be one of your partners in this, whether you
Well, he's
want
ju-
him to be or not.
He's just granting us an easement, that's
Still,
all. We're
but
not
he's-
doing anything else, we have no other.
But it's his
But
property.
we have to apply the order of conditions to properties. So it'll be the Crawley's property and this property if it's all part of the same.
But
Same.
John,
When does it become separate is the question.
John, the way it becomes separate is if you guys buy the properties, right?
No,
No.
then we all want.
Then
Then
it's
you'll
the
have your one,
opposite.
then you'll have your one thing.
Then,
No,
then
that's
it,
only
buy-
one crossing.
that's still only one crossing.
Still, I mean, but
that
it's
makes
still
it
gonna be,
worse.
it'll be one instead of
The way
having
it's
two other people on
separate
your
is if it's two
agreement.
separate
One
applicants.
application.
Yeah, instead of
right?
one applicant.
So if we were the applicant and we restricted our development to the Crowley property, but still gave an access point right to the northern boundary line of Millet, then Millet comes in as a separate applicant with a separate subdivision. That's,
That's
you know,
two
then-
separate
then-
things.
And he's got access.
But then you still
For
have
both
the property.
sides.
You still
Because
have the
all we're
property.
doing is we're providing him an access point on his northern boundary. And
But-
then
but-
and possibly another access point where the cul-de-sac is
Yeah, he actually
on
can
our,
have, he could make his way out to Samuel Avenue.
But even-
bobbing and weaving through all the, around the wetlands, he could go all the way up to Samuel Avenue.
So let's say he can get to Samuel Ave, and he has an alternative, then you can't cross the wetlands,
Yeah.
because one of the performance standards is that
No
you have
other
no
way.
other alternative.
Yeah.
No other alternative, all right.
Yeah, so actually, even if we gave him an access point and he came in as a separate applicant, he could develop what's on the west side of the brook. And
Okay,
he
so
could
let's-
possibly even develop what's on the east side of the brook through another access.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Right,
he
that's
wouldn't
what I
have
said before.
justification. to
Yeah,
develop.
so
So-
let's say this road is a real long shot, and we bifurcated it and doing Plan A and Plan B. The only question is, how do we get the water to Plan B? Is that something you're gonna have a problem with if we bring the water through or what?
You're still impacting the resource area, so the commission members have to feel comfortable
Right.
as to what you're proposing to be able to then
Right.
decide yea or nay.
So I kinda wanna get a sense of, are we wasting our
I'd
time?
be a lot easier to swallow a piece of the pie if it was an 8-inch water main going across there.
Oh, me too.
Than a subdivision.
Than a
And I think
road,
it
yeah.
is more workable to get the water main through.
Yeah.
I think it's much less of a disturbance.
It's not oil going across.
I think you
it's
can
water.
dig a fairly small trench to.
I mean, if you dig the trench in the summertime, when it's at the driest condition, because the pipes are 20 feet long, and I've never seen them any longer, if the brook's 10 feet, you'd be out of the brook.
Then
But
I've seen
if you ever
places
had a-
in Middleborough where
But-
they put lines, whether it's sewage or water or whatever, up over the river.
No, we're doing it
I
on the
understand,
Brockton side.
but stuff like
Yeah.
that with the road up and over, so they're not even impacting with the water.
Right.
But I think there's a way to get across this with
You
a
can
water
do
main.
that, right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Plus,
A lot easier.
But
Yeah, if
how are you gonna
that's-
do that without a road? I mean, you can do that without a road, but
Well,
you still have to,
you need to do some clearing.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, no, you gotta
and then you're gonna have to have some.
clear the road through there, so you can.
Yeah, we understand that.
So you can get in there and then.
This
let
is
it go.
just a gut feeling, but, and again, we have other things on the agenda to talk about, but, I don't think you're gonna get a 100% unanimous decision for a water crossing. So, you may get a majority, but you're not gonna get a unanimous.
All right, so.
So,
We only
majority
need a
rules.
majority. We only need a majority.
And I can't tell you what
Well, we
those
can live
numbers
with
are.
that.
Yeah. Plus, we could make that, really, it's just a temporary disturbance. We could restore all the wetland once that line was in
Yeah,
place.
That's correct.
It's not a continuing thing once it's there.
We'd have you restore the
And-
bank, we'd have you restore the stream
Disturbing
bed.
it to
We
begin
would
with.
sleeve the water underneath there, so if there's ever a problem, you're not digging in the river to fix it.
Have you ever installed water mains with directional drilling?
Oh.
My partner has, they did a lot of it in San Diego.
So that might be a possibility as well.
Yeah.
So
I
that you
I
don't.
saw them doing that out there.
Yeah, they do it on the highway all the time.
Unbelievable, the
They go a
entrance.
long way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, actually.
So we got a
Directional
little, we've got a
boring.
little
You-
bit of
we could
common
do
ground
that.
here doing.
Sleeve
There's
it.
options.
They were huge.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, they dig a shaft on each side. They put the machine
From the
down.
reservoir.
Yeah.
All right, well. I can
Thanks a
live with
lot. for
Give you
your
some-
time.
All right, guys, I think you got a semi-plan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that would be the way to go if everybody likes it, then let,
Well, like I said, I
From
don't
one
think you're gonna
side to
get
the other.
everybody, but
no, well,
You
you
got
gotta
a
convince a
direction.
majority.
But, you know, we're better off than we were before we spoke to.
John.
We feel good about that.
Thank you.
Yep.
it. Thanks a lot,
Nice to
guys.
see
You're
you.
welcome.
See you soon, I hope. Have to get my etch a sketch out. Thank you, John.
Yep, we'll see ya.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Okay. Jewel Drive, request for removal of trees was next on our agenda.
So, I included in the packet some pictures and some sketches, so I'll try to bring those up. Why don't I do the markup?
'Cause I was gonna say, if we do the markup first, I think one tree is outside the 50-foot.
Yes.
So that one kinda doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of jurisdiction.
The one on the bottom.
Right, but the one at the top, that's right on the line.
So, can you see this all right, Steve? So this one is pretty much either on the buffer or just inside the buffer line to the wetlands, which are out in this area here. So it's about 50 feet from here to there. This one is outside the buffer, and both of them look to be leaning to and potentially create some property damage to the house. I sent you guys some pictures of what they look like. I can bring them up. But I informed the owner that you do have a regulation that requires a 3-to-1 ratio of planting. So if the commission is interested in approving this cutting, then the gentleman will be putting in 6 trees, and the ones he wants to cut are oaks. And so I'd recommend that he replace in kind with oak trees that are 4 foot high, which is what your requirement is. And if the commission likes that,
Is he worried about damage or?
Yes.
Is that the reason? Are they healthy?
Let me bring up the picture.
I mean, I looked at the pictures, they look like good trees, but.
That's behind me.
I can understand.
Well, after the,
I mean, I get the first tree, but
Yeah.
I don't have much.
after the last storm we had with all the oaks that got wiped out.
Well, yeah, I mean.
One
yeah.
close to the house, I mean,
Is the second one close enough to do any damage?
the one that's
And it's
farthest
in the
away to the
wetlands.
south,
Depends on how.
I kinda would question that one myself.
Yeah, it's pretty far back.
Just looking at the top of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
structure isn't all that great.
So this was the one to the south.
That one.
It's that one right there.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Little iffy.
Yeah.
Can understand
Well,
it. It's kinda
one of the
tall.
signs to look for, when you see all of those sucker branches sprouting
Yes.
off from the lower parts,
Right.
Top heavy.
that means that there's not a lot of good growth at the top, so it's forcing it to come out lower where it can get all its
Oh,
nutrients and
interesting.
food and all the stuff that it
Yeah.
needs to live.
That's true,
And if
yeah.
you look further up,
It's branch
it's got a
growth.
bunch of really big crotches and cross, I mean, where they split, which isn't, I mean, they're oaks, so they're typically pretty strong, but that's where rot and decay start to build up. So a tree that age and big.
But now, will they rot if it's kind of like sitting in water more? Now, if like
But that's not in the wetland.
within the.
No.
No.
Oh, it isn't. Okay.
So that's kind of.
Right, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
true.
it's in the
Yeah.
buffer
One-
zone.
But
It-
the one behind it, is it behind it, John? The one that's.
The other
that's
one?
in the wetlands?
The other one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let
that
me,
one looks
let
like
me
it's a
call that up,
distance.
but, this is within the 100 feet, so
Oh,
it's
it is
still.
within-
Right,
it's
so
So
within
it's still your
100 feet.
jurisdiction.
Okay.
That one's fine.
But it's not actually rooted in any kind of wetland.
No.
Soil
No.
or anything.
No.
I can see.
So
those
let me
two
bring up the
tall.
other one.
You could just wait till the next storm and it might come down in.
Well, it might not come down on the house though.
It's one of those things is that the storm might knock it, but it might go the other way.
Yeah.
so.
I went. There was a today in Whitman. I was going by a house.
And this is what happens when you
It took down like
cut
6
down
trees.
woods and build houses in the woods,
Sure.
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're opening it all up,
Mm.
so.
And they asked permission to open it up even more.
Yeah, exactly.
No wonder why the people are upset with wildlife because.
Right, where are they gonna go?
Yeah.
And then you got people asking to cross rivers.
So I would estimate that you can see the evidence of the silt fence that used to be here,
Hmm,
and that was probably along the 50-foot buffer.
right.
So this is just inside
Oh, okay.
towards the wetland, which is out in here. And this one is you see how close it is to the house here.
Yeah.
And it does have the branches off.
Boy, they don't much of a yard at all. And I know that is a huge lot. All that wetland on that lot is huge. But that's all they got out of it.
Yeah, this lot is 7 acres.
Yeah.
And the majority of it's all wet.
Right.
And sometimes I wonder, because I'm not saying anybody about building a big house, but if you got like a limited amount of property for the house lot, you want to put a big house on it, but you want a big yard, that doesn't make any sense. If you can cut down the house size a little bit and possibly get a little more of a backyard or
Right.
but sometimes they don't. I don't know why they don't think that. Then they go out and clear. Oh, but I got all this property out here, and they just go and clear it, and then they're violating the wetland or whatever.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense sometimes.
And that is a big house.
Yeah.
So this fellow and his wife just recently purchased this property and did their due diligence ahead of time by asking for all of the plot plans that we had on file. So they understand they can't expand their yard, and I think the only place they can is if you're looking at the house from the end of the cul-de-sac, it would be to the left of their driveway. There's more room there without encroaching into the buffer for a pool, let's say, in the future, but everything else is pretty restricted.
So
And
if they take those trees down, are they going to take the stumps out? Are they going to
No.
break them? So they'll
No.
leave those in?
One of the conditions will leave the stumps and plant 3 oaks in that area near each tree.
So so they're doing it to benefit themselves from not hitting the house, not to
Right.
benefit themselves expand the yard and maybe
Right.
put on a deck.
Right, right.
And they're putting healthy, viable.
Yeah, and then they're agreeing to put in more trees, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. My only thing I would add before we say yes to taking him down is, can we get them to put markers on the property?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't see any there currently.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So
After they do it, yeah.
in order for them to do that, they'd have to hire an engineer.
Oh.
Unless you felt comfortable having them go along the edge of the woods and calling that the line.
Yeah, for where like the grass line is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
way
mean,
they-
they seem like they.
That's-
Problem later?
I mean, looking at the plan and looking at where the wetland line was,
Maybe they come in. Maybe if they come in and
I mean, it looks like,
talk to them about it.
So
I mean, it looks like the erosion control was pretty much where the line was,
Yeah.
so.
So what I could do is, if you didn't want them to have it on an engineered plan, I could go out and put flags where they should put the PVC markers. And once they put them in,
And they can sign to agree something that they won't go any farther than that.
Yep.
And
I'd
like
be
John
happy.
said, they know what they
Yeah,
have
I'd be
for
happy with
property
that.
too. Yeah, if you did that, John, I'd be.
If they-
I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
playing catch up a little here if we can.
No, I mean, that seems to be,
Right.
it can be like.
And then at
well,
least it puts the neighbors on either side on notice
Right.
that
It is standard.
there's something
too.
in our yard, we
Yeah.
need to, at least if we do something.
But if they came in and just cleared them out without
Right.
letting us know, then they'd have to get the engineer, put those
Right,
things out
right.
there,
But
yeah.
they-
But they're doing it the right way.
And it's not like they're looking to expand and go
Right.
back
Nope.
further, they wanna
No, I think
protect
it's fair.
their assets, which,
And they're
Can't
not
blame
really
'em.
disturbing anything except the topography, maybe, that might change something, but probably not much for long.
one of the prospective buyers wanted to be able to build a horse barn, stable, let's call it, and a corral. And I said, well, you have no room to do that. Well, it's just woods out there.
Well,
Surprise!
we've had that happen
Find out,
before.
yeah.
So they were discouraged, and this other couple ended up. Apparently, the one with the horses had outbid the one
Of course.
that did buy it, but when they found out they couldn't do the horses, they retracted their bid, and these people got it. So he told me he lost his bid, and then a couple of days later, he said, "Oh, I got it back." So they're very
John.
excited
Yeah.
about it.
All right.
All right, so I need a vote on that because I have to sign a form that says we approve it.
I'll entertain a motion to approve removal
With
and
conditions.
Yeah, with
replanting
condition,
And of the,
6, you said total?
right, and taking down the 2 and planting the 6.
Oh, plain and simple.
Okay, I'll
And
make the
signs,
motion.
and the
I'll make-
wetland markers.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay.
With the conditions.
Right,
Yes.
with,
Of
right. with
coming
the s-
in and,
Yeah, with the signs
With
and
the
the
pole.
acknowledgement of.
yep,
yeah.
okay.
All right. What do we have next? Vitz Way. Let me call it up and we'll see what we have here.
At least all of these weren't part of the packet you sent us.
I was looking at it like, oh my God, this is gonna be long. This long,
But I do thank you for sending all of those, the Meadow Estate ones out early enough, because I had time to, yeah, take a look and see what.
Well, I used to live on the Brockton, on Tupelo Street, which is right on the border there. And years and years ago, and that was all open fields out there. It's all grown in now, I think.
It was like that lady that said, oh, that stone wall that was behind.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an old stone wall. We want to preserve it. It's like, well, it used to be an old. All it was field back then.
I remember
So they
the
put that there.
planes coming in
Yeah.
over the house spraying.
Oh,
They
yeah.
dropped down over the cornfield.
Yeah.
That's funny what people will, yeah.
Why is there a stone wall in the woods?
Because
Because there used to be fields back in the day.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the as-built for Vitz Way Enterprise Car store their vehicles on this parking lot. They've installed all of the stormwater basins. There's basins here, there's a basin here, and another one over here, this one, and this one. So there's a lot of basins because it's all blacktop. So naturally, there's gonna be a lot of runoff. They had submitted this, earlier version of this as-built, and there was some unfinished work, and so we would allow them to get a certificate, but the cash surety was gonna be so high that they decided to wait.
Yeah.
So I've reviewed all of the documents submitted, and they have complied with every requirement to get the COC. And so I'm recommending that you issue a COC without a bond.
I'll entertain a motion to issue a certificate without bond.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. 402 West Center Street, minor project change to the Valvoline oil project, which is the one right next to Market Basket.
I think a lot of people are wishing there was a Starbucks.
I know, I was one of them.
I know,
Were you?
my daughter was too.
When I saw what it was, I was like, oh.
I know, I was like, there's the Midas right across the
Yeah.
street.
Another one? Between liquor stores and Dunkin' Donuts and.
Oil change places.
You're getting pretty good at this, John.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to get back into
2 weeks you'll be all flat out, going, how do I do it?
all right, so this one is, of course, the Valvoline, and they're gonna be coming in for a certificate of compliance and probably at the next meeting. But before they come in with it, the commission has to decide whether they installed a dewatering pump system to make sure that water didn't come up into the basement of this facility. And so that's a project change because it wasn't approved on the original plan. So they put crushed stone all around the footing of the building at the time of construction, and had a temporary pump system, and decided that maybe it's best that they keep it going all the time.
Don't they have to have that all the time? Well, I mean, I guess they don't have it in the other stores sometimes. I guess it's just
Well,
depending
that's-
on the area you're in. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
and-
something, if they don't wanna do it, then that's their problem,
Yeah.
to a point.
So they have proposed, and they weren't discharging it to the stormwater underground system. Originally, it was just going off into the stormwater basin area here. They are gonna pump it over to the manhole at the beginning of the stormwater system and run it through, and it exits here and goes into the wetlands. So it's really just groundwater, it's clean. When they come in for their certificate of compliance, I'll be doing an inspection to make sure that there's no inner connections to this footing drain that they put in. Otherwise, if they had a spill inside, it could contaminate. As long as they don't have any inside connection to the outside, then I don't see an issue with this. And if they did, I wouldn't recommend the COC. So we'll see how that comes out when we do the inspection for that, but I recommend that this is a minor project change.
I'll make a motion.
A motion?
Second.
Moved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. 63 Maple Street, request for a minor project change followed by a certificate of compliance.
You're still with us, Josh?
Still here.
Do you think you can share?
Got his pajamas on now.
Yeah, I'll throw up the plan right now.
Okay.
This is classy.
Alright, can you guys see my screen?
I don't know why we're having issues with this. Let me see if there's any setting. Yeah, what we're seeing is a very difficult to read screen. We didn't have this problem
If
with
you-
Zoom, did we?
No, if you,
No.
yeah, John, I
Down
think
to
if you
the
go to
three
the share
dots.
screen one, the bottom,
Yep.
and hit entire, your entire screen, that,
Okay.
share, share now?
No.
No.
Go down to the three dots, then isn't that what that lady did?
Oh, yeah, that's what it just says.
I may have messed you up there, Josh.
Full screen.
Full screen.
Oh. Okay.
Well, we'll get full screen.
Yeah, now we can share, and I think it'll,
Oh,
there we
it
go.
is.
There we go.
That's better.
Yeah, that's better.
Alright, cool. Alright, so first, we're here for a minor project on 63 Maple Street. Basically, what happened was the applicant went to the planning board for a modification of the site plan. To basically put up some barriers to separate the site and the nearest residential zone, which, as I can show on the plan, is across Route 24. So, basically, they installed some barriers on the site to prevent cars or anybody from
Yes, so we had approved a plan that had them remove some of the blacktop and do some stormwater improvements. Let me see if Josh, I'm gonna, if you stop, oh, there you go.
I got that one up as well.
Yep. All right, so you can see how this area in here, they were going to take out of hard top and pull it back into this area here. And that was to comply with the setback distance from the abutters on the other side of the highway.
What's the
Yeah, the other side of the highway.
And so if you drew a straight line, you'd see how by taking that stuff, that hardscaping stuff out, they would comply with the requirement to keep their facility separate from the buffer to the neighbors. Because in order to have a marijuana facility, you have to be a certain distance from residential houses.
Oh, how far is the distance from that?
Is that 500?
Yeah, it's 500 feet.
I didn't know that.
So they proposed this plan showing how they were gonna take anything that had to do with the facility out of that 500-foot buffer.
Okay.
It had really no impact on our decision because it was all existing.
Right.
And because they were gonna be doing some alterations, it required the filing of the notice of intent because it was within 100 feet of the wetland. Now they're not going to do that because the planning board allowed them to just put up a barrier.
Oh, okay.
So they really made no changes to the site and makes the original decision more or less moot at this point. And so what I'm recommending is that it's a minor change, that they just put up these barriers to prevent any activity occurring related to this facility to occur within 500 feet of the abutters. And if you approve the minor project change, the next item on the agenda is to issue a certificate of compliance that they complied with the original plan.
I'll entertain a motion for a minor project change.
I'll make that.
I'll
make that
second. You make it, I'll second.
Okay, Lee makes.
We have the traffic.
Moved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And now I will entertain a motion for certificate of compliance without a bond.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
You're all set.
Thank you very much, Josh.
All right, thanks guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Yep.
255
Where's Maple
Spring
run
Street.
Maple
Off of Pleasant.
off of Pleasant?
Yeah,
up by
it's at the very end of Pleasant Street.
Okay.
Up by
I think I
Harding
know
up
where
there,
it is now, yeah.
Way down
storage
at the
facilities. It's the old Plassey Masonry
Yeah.
building, that's that building.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right, so the next items on the agenda for 255 Spring Street, 1 Ames Drive, 373 Crescent Street, and 279 Pleasant Street are all looking for certificate of compliances, but have yet to produce a as-built plan that
Okay.
complies with our requirements.
They want compliances without complying.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've been talking to Ames Drive, and they're working on it. I've talked with 279 Pleasant Street, and they're working on their as-built, bringing it up to snuff. 373 Crescent Street, I think he might be on vacation because usually when I leave a message, he calls back fairly soon, and he hasn't called back. And 255 Spring Street, we may have an issue. The sellers were supposed to get the COC, and we kept, it was a septic upgrade, so we only kept $100 to go for the COC. They've moved off, and some young couple has moved in, and they don't have a COC yet. And the as-built has to be upgraded, and I'm sure the young couple doesn't want to spend the money, and neither do the previous owners want to spend the money because they've sold the property and they've gone off somewhere else, and I don't know exactly what the situation was, why they had to sell, but there was some issue there as well. So I really don't know how we're gonna collect this as-built, because the engineer can't be expected to work for nothing. And it wasn't the engineer's fault that the contractor put the PVC markers in the wrong place, and that's what the big issue is that we have a as-built that doesn't have the markers in the right place. So, I'm gonna work on it. I'll get back to you a little bit more on it, but we may have to do some enforcement action.
I think in the future, if we know something that maybe a possibility of them gonna be selling, maybe we put a higher stake, like $1,000.
We do that on, let's say, bigger.
But even still, I mean,
Right, I
like
mean,
to this.
But for
it's not-
septics, you
No,
know,
I understand, but if we kinda like, if now it's still a problem where engineer, new homeowners, the old homeowners, granted it's only $100, but still, if we put $1,000, knowing that maybe it's a possibility of asking them, are you selling or whatever, and they say yeah.
Then they're gonna come in and get the certificate and get their money back.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's only temporary anyway.
Yeah.
Right, it's-
Let's go to 1,500.
Okay.
Right, I mean, it.
Now, could we use that money to have an engineer do what we need to be done on that property?
So let's say we had done that for this particular site, and we tried to notify the people involved that gave us the money that it's not in compliance, and we're notifying you that we'll seize your surety unless you tell us that you're gonna take care of this by a certain date.
Yep.
And if they don't do that work and let us know within the timeframes that we're giving them, then we would have and I'd check with town council, of course, but we would have the right to take that bond money and apply it to having somebody do the work. So we could hire an engineer and say,
Yeah.
go out there and move those markers, and we'll pay you with that $1,500.
Yep, then we wouldn't lose out.
But
So they're living there, right?
the new couple has moved in,
How did they pass papers without a?
because the attorney represented the bank probably and didn't.
Didn't care.
About conservation, yeah.
Yeah.
It's only a minor setback.
So they,
Oh,
without
we'll
a
get to that.
certificate, they pass papers.
And it happens, and that's why we had to do these sureties, because some of the attorneys are very meticulous about it and won't let a closing go without it.
Yeah. How did you catch it? I mean.
Well, when the engineer did the as-built, I'm looking at, why are these markers where they are and not,
Okay.
I mean, they
I
were
see.
closer to the wetland than they should have been.
Okay.
They should have been back up 50 feet away.
Oh.
So if we make this, the money higher, then the homeowner will be more alert to it, and then,
We may get some complaints, but as long as you feel steadfast
yeah, I mean,
about
that's,
this.
then that way we don't lose out and the
And-
wetland markers get put in the right way.
That's
Oh,
right.
and we don't have
Whatever.
to worry about
Yeah.
coming out of our,
Yeah.
And new owners get to say, what is that? Or why is
then
it
they
there?
understand.
Yeah,
that
why are they all of a
something
sudden
Right.
closer to my house than
Yeah,
where they were?
exactly.
Then we can, yeah. So maybe if the future that they go and sell,
Yep. All right.
plus like you said, even like with the other one, the neighbors next door might be like, what's going on over there? Then they might pass it on, word gets on,
Right.
so.
All right, so I'll still work with them to see if I can get a resolution to that particular problem. I think the others will come into compliance willingly without any issues. Just takes some time. One said that his engineering staff has been whittled down to such a few people that it's just backlogged. And that's why he hasn't gotten back out there to do what we needed him to do. And so that just leaves the invoices, and we have, and signatures on some forms. We have invoice for WB Mason office supplies for $18.04. And we have a 53G review engineers invoice for 400 Manley Street for $600, and that's the, that would close off that particular project. review, that was their final review, so 600 for Allen and Major, and 1804 for WB Mason office supplies.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Move and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We can sign those. And is that it?
That's it.
Anything else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
And I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
So moved.
How you
And if you wanna
doing
start
with,
handing papers around for signatures, 'cause I think we have a bunch to do.
How you doing?